Hello, you're watching Nightline and I'm Nakia Bashrudin, news making the headlines. Health Ministry urges all mass gatherings be postponed immediately. And Singapore freezes mosque activities, including Friday prayers, after Fatwa Committee's approval. Welcome. 9 new COVID-19 cases are recorded on Thursday, bringing the total of cases to 158. Health Ministry Director General Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah said one of the new cases was related to the first cluster, cases 26 and 33, while the remaining were patients under investigation and linked to case 131, the participant of the Tablik event in Sri Petaling. Dr. Nur Hisham said since the case now has been traced to a source, it cannot be considered as a sporadic case anymore. Speaking to reporters at the Prime Minister's office after attending the COVID-19 meeting on Thursday, Dr. Nur Hisham said among the Tablik participants who tested positive were from Sabah, Kuantan, Pahang, Johor Bahru, Perak and Kota Bharu in Kelantan. Dr. Nur Hisham also revealed 6 more patients have been discharged.
A lot of fake news, and then creating a lot of fear.
Following the World Health Organization, WHO's declaration that COVID-19 is now a pandemic, Malaysia, which has recorded 158 positive cases, wants all mass gatherings to be postponed to minimize the spread of the virus. This includes religious events and gatherings. Labeling the spread a pandemic indicates that it has officially spread around the world. It is also a reflection of the WHO's concern at what it calls the alarming levels of the coronavirus spread, severity and inaction, and the expectation that the number of cases, deaths and affected countries will continue to climb. Such development has prompted Putrajaya to advise the people in Malaysia who experience respiratory infection symptoms not to attend programs that involved crowded places, including religious activities.
Apa yang dimaklumkan oleh Jemaah Menteri, kita menggesa supaya kalau boleh kita mengurangkan crowd gathering dan juga mass event. Kerana ini adalah untuk kepentingan kita sendiri supaya kita tercegah daripada jangkitan coronavirus atau COVID-19.
The health minister was speaking to the media after visiting the Sungai Buloh Hospital in Selangor, the main dedicated health center to treat the coronavirus infection. He also said that following WHO's declaration of COVID-19 as a pandemic, Malaysia is at the highest level of preparedness.
Apa yang plan kita ada kesiapsiagaan menyediakan sebuah hospital yang memang khusus untuk COVID-19 dan kita mempunyai keupayaan untuk sampai ke berapa bed kita buat? Kita boleh berupaya untuk mengendalikan hingga 772 pesakit at one time di sini di Hospital Sungai Buloh.
On a gathering from February 27th to March 1st at the Sri Petaling Mosque in Selangor, where a Bruneian man infected with COVID-19 also took part, the health minister called on those who attended the gathering to cooperate with the health ministry to ensure that COVID-19 does not spread in the community. They should report to the authorities if they show any symptoms of COVID-19.
Countries must take a whole of government.
And in response to the COVID-19 being declared a pandemic, weekly Friday prayers at mosques will be shortened, while masses at Catholic churches in the peninsula have been suspended. Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Sri Dr. Zulkifli Muhammad Al-Bakri, said prayers at mosques can still be performed with precaution and guidelines. Mosques have been urged to take necessary steps to ensure the health and safety of the congregation. He also said that those showing COVID-19 symptoms need not go for Friday prayers, as sick people were exempted from attending. The issue of Friday prayers was among 5 other working papers related to COVID-19, which would be submitted to the National Fatwa Fatwa Council. Other items include shaking hands, organizing wedding receptions, handling an infected person's remains, and others. While for the Catholic Church in Peninsular Malaysia, all public masses are suspended beginning this weekend. The Catholic bishops of Peninsular Malaysia on Thursday announced that all weekend and weekday public masses will be suspended from March 14th or March 13th if the state's weekend begins on Friday to March 29th. Similar suspension applies to other church activities such as catechism classes, meetings, gatherings, formations, and fellowship sessions, which need to be cancelled or placed on hold during the suspension period. Malaysian Association of Tour and Travel Agents, MATA, has requested for the government to amend a clause in the Tourism Industry Act, which it says has caused millions of losses and issues in the mass cancellations of tourist packages following the COVID-19 outbreak. Its president, Datuk Sri Tan Kok Liang, said the provision had placed travel agents in a quandary as customers were seeking compensation and refunds for their tours following the virus outbreak.
Many customers now are looking at the minimum administrative fee allowed in the fourth schedule, which is $30. RM30 ini boleh buat apa? Minum kopi pun sudah habis. Or 2% of the tour fare, whichever is higher, and ignoring the fact that all or a substantial portion of payments forwarded to airlines and hotels have been forfeited according to their cancellation policies.
He added that the travel agents are now exposed to a potential liability of around 500 million ringgit from customers seeking compensation. Datuk Tan said this was problematic as travel agents might have already distributed the funds to other tourism providers such as transport companies, hotels, airlines, restaurants and related businesses. Malaysia Airlines Berhad MAB has asked its 13,000 employees to take voluntary unpaid leave as the spread of COVID-19 takes a heavy toll on the airline's bottom line. When contacted, an MAB spokesperson said the national carrier is offering all employees the option of taking 3 months no-pay leave or 5 days no-pay leave per month for at least 3 months starting April. On Monday, MAB Group CEO Captain Izham Ismail announced a 10% pay cut for its senior management as part of measures to lower operational costs and also forgo their allowances. The voluntary unpaid leave program is extended to employees employed by subsidiaries of Malaysia Aviation Group, MAG, such as MAB Cargo, MAB Engineering, Fireflies and Maswing. Already, major international airlines such as Singapore Airlines, Cathay Pacific, British Airways, Lufthansa, Emirates, Virgin Atlantic and EasyJet are offering staff unpaid leave. In another development, Malaysia Airlines has temporarily suspended its return flights to Seoul, South Korea, starting Friday until March 31st. The national carrier in a statement said this follows the government's decision to ban travelers from Iran, Italy and South Korea, while Malaysians returning from the 3 countries will be quarantined for 14 days. Malaysia Airlines will manage its final flight, MH66, from Kuala Lumpur to Incheon on Thursday, with a return flight on MH67 on Friday. Affected passengers can request for alternative travelling dates until December 31st, 2020, ask for a full refund, or be diverted to other destinations in China or Japan. Prasarana has been cleaning the Mass Rapid Transit MRT, Light Rapid Transit LRT, monorail lines and buses operated by the company daily since the breakout of the COVID-19. Chief Operating Officer for the Sungai Buloh Kajang MRT line, Azmi Mohammad Zain, gave this assurance to commuters that they have ramped up their cleanliness to ensure the virus doesn't spread through the public transport operated by them.
Aktiviti penyah virus ini akan berlaku bermula waktu malam. Selepas semua tren pulang ke depo, kita akan melakukan pembersihan tren ke semua tren di dalam depo. Jadi kita akan pastikan sebelum bermula operasi pukul 6 pagi esok, semua train telah dicuci. Dan untuk staf pula, semua kena mengikuti saringan kesihatan sebelum mereka memulakan tugas atau memasuki office.
Azmi also stressed that the cleaners also focus on cleaning each train during the morning and afternoon peak hours between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m., as well as between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. Outside of these peak hours, the cleaners will focus on cleaning the stations itself by disinfecting surfaces touched by commuters, such as the escalators and ticket machines. Perak will get a new Menteri Besar and his identity will be known before the swearing-in ceremony on Friday. State Secretary Dato' Ahmad Suwaidi Abdul Rahim said the Sultan of Perak, Sultan Nazrin Muizzuddin Shah, has assented that the ceremony would be held at 3 p.m. on Friday. Dato' Ahmad Suwaidi, in a statement on Thursday, said the swearing-in ceremony will be held at Istana Iskandaria in Kuala Kangsar. Earlier on Thursday, Sultan Nazrin had summoned 3 nominees for the post: Datuk Sri Ahmad Faizal Azumu from Bersatu, Datuk Sarani Muhammad of UMNO, and PAS Razman Zakaria to Istana Kinta in Ipoh. Datuk Sri Ahmad Faizal, the former Menteri Besar, said they have submitted a letter to the Sultan to appoint a new Menteri Besar for the state. After meeting the nominees of the Menteri Besar, Sultan Nazrin had also met with 7 former state executive councillors. On Tuesday, Datuk Sri Ahmad Faizal submitted his resignation letter to the Sultan. Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin will meet with Sabah Chief Minister Datuk Sri Muhammad Shafi Abdal and Sarawak Chief Minister Datuk Patinggi Abang Johari Abang Openg as soon as possible to discuss the Malaysia Agreement 1963 MA63. Gabungan Parti Sarawak GPS Party Whip and Senior Minister of the new federal government, Datuk Sri Fadilah Yusof, said he had voiced the importance of MA63 to the Prime Minister during the first cabinet meeting on Thursday and the need to give Articles 1(2) and 160 of the Federal Constitution a relook. Datuk Sri Fadilah, who is also the Works Minister, said from an administrative aspect, the matter had already been agreed upon, and now the focus was on the legal aspect. Article 1(2) describes the states in the Federation, including Sabah and Sarawak, while Article 160 describes the meaning of various terms used in the Federal Constitution. Asked whether the discussion would include the issue of oil royalties, Datuk Sri Fadilah said the matter would be looked at based on the Constitution. Meanwhile, commenting on the willingness of Tan Sri Muhyiddin to hold the meetings with parties from Sabah and Sarawak, Sarawak Chief Minister Datuk Patinggi Abang Johari Tun Openg had proposed that the Article 160(2) of the Federal Constitution be amended, since the interpretation of the phrase "the Federation" still refers to the federation established under the Federation of Malaya Agreement 1957.
Satu, bukannya disebut Malaysia Federation Malaya Agreement. Jadi kita cadangkan buka kepada selepas Malaysia Federation Malaysia Agreement.
The words pursuant to MA63,
because the moment you have amended 1602, meaning that one already giving force to MA63.
Datuk Sri Abang Johari said the state government would give its full support if the federal government was planning to retable the amendment to the Article 1(2) of the Federal Constitution in the Dewan Rakyat. The Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs Ministry will continue with existing policies and strategies implemented by the previous government and make improvements where needed. Its new minister, Dato' Alexander Nantalinggi, said the government would also look into the petrol subsidy program, PSP, introduced by the previous government to determine whether it should be continued.
Will you continue the petrol subsidy program from the previous government?
Well, it's a bit too early for me to say so, but I will have to have a briefing from the officers And of course, as I mentioned earlier on, if anything that's already in place or proposed, I would believe that if they are good, then why not? We can look at it positively and we can continue with it if it is good for the rakyat, good for the country.
Datuk Nanta said there was certainly room for improvement in reference to strategies or policies which could bring harmony to the people. Asked about the suggestion made by the Petrol Dealers Association of Malaysia, PDAM, that the government set floor prices for petrol and diesel due to the global price war, Nanta said the ministry would look into the idea. After the break, missing man found dead following crash. This and more home news when we return. Welcome back. The Pahang Customs Department has seized smuggled cigarettes valued at 430,000 ringgit following a raid at a house in Lorong Air Puteh, Kuantan recently. The raid at 3:30 p.m. on March 3rd was conducted when information gathered showed that the double-story house had been used as a storage facility for the contraband. Customs Assistant Director General of Enforcement, Datuk Johari Alifia, said the team had waited for an hour before storming into the premises as they hoped to arrest the suspects responsible in smuggling the contraband items. However, no one turned up. The raiding team later recovered 2,929 cartons of smuggled cigarettes worth 49,000 ringgit, with unpaid duties estimated at 380,000 ringgit in the house.
Merupakan barang yang belum lulus custom. Maknanya cukai dan duty belum dibayar.
Datuk Johari said those who stored the cigarettes at the premises were believed to be part of a bigger syndicate and the department will track them down. The case is being investigated under Section 135, Bracket 1, Bracket D of the Customs Act 1967 for possession or selling of smuggled cigarettes. Meanwhile, in Mersing, Johor, a man who was reported missing last Saturday has been located. The 30-year-old man, identified as Muhammad Izzuddin Israfil, however, was found dead after he was apparently involved in an accident at Jalan Kota Tinggi, Mersing. Mersing Police Chief Superintendent Cyril Edward Newing said Muhammad's body was trapped under his Proton Persona, which skidded about 20 meters off the main road. The victim's car was found at the foot of a hill by passers-by, who alerted the police at about 8:15 p.m. Wednesday night. Police later found Muhammad's decomposing remains with injuries to his head and body. According to Superintendent Cyril, Muhammad could have lost control of his car before it skidded and came to a halt at the foot of the hill. His remains were sent to Mersing Hospital for post-mortem. Muhammad was reported missing when he did not arrive at his parents' home in Taman Sri Putri, Mersing, last Saturday after informing them that he was on the way after leaving his rented house in Ulu Tiram, Johor Bahru. Still to come on Nightline, Australia unveils a stimulus package to curb coronavirus impact. We'll be right back. Now on to the foreign front. From Friday the 13th, mosques across Singapore will be closed for 5 days for thorough disinfection. During the closure, there will be no Friday prayers, no daily congregational prayers, and all mosques activities and community events will cease. The move comes following an announcement that the Ministry of Health is tracking 95 Singaporeans who reportedly attended a religious event in Kuala Lumpur and may have been exposed to the coronavirus. According to the Islamic Religious Council of Singapore, MUIS, the new measures were meant to prevent a sizable cluster of COVID-19 cases from breaking out in local mosques. It also added that the reopening of the mosque will depend on confirmed cases that come out of the 95 who attended the event. A review will then be conducted on Monday on the state of hygiene and cleanliness at the mosques before the order to reopen mosques is given. Australia's government on Thursday said it would pump $11.4 billion into the economy to prevent the coronavirus outbreak from pushing the country into its first recession in nearly 30 years. The amount, announced by Prime Minister Scott Morrison, will be pumped into the economy, including tax relief for small businesses and one-off welfare payments to pensioners, family carers and young people.
This plan is about keeping Australians in jobs. This plan is about keeping a business in business, particularly small and medium-sized businesses. And this plan is about ensuring the Australian economy bounces back stronger on the other side of it, and with that, the budget bounces back with it. Today, we're announcing a series of measures. Those measures are designed to achieve those outcomes. They are heavily focused on understanding that it is businesses that keep people in jobs. Put this stimulus in place.
The measures, he stressed, are aimed at keeping Australians at jobs as fears grow the country could slip into recession. Morrison said businesses that are confronted with cash flow challenges and demand impacts, particularly in the short term, are addressed by this package. The Prime Minister said fiscal stimulus is necessary to deal with the economic challenges Australia will face in the months ahead due to COVID-19.
$50 billion. Using
La Liga suspended with mounting pressure on Premier League to follow suit. Stay tuned. And now moving on to sports. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the first and second tiers of Spanish domestic football have been suspended for the next 2 match days, at least, following a meeting between La Liga, the Spanish Football Federation, and the Players' Union on Thursday. The decision was made almost at the same time that Real Madrid declared that their football and basketball teams had been put into quarantine after one of their basketball players tested positive for the coronavirus. The Spanish top flight had originally planned to play the next 2 rounds of matches behind closed doors. But under guidance from the government, they have now decided to suspend all matches for the remainder of the month. The move also comes after Real Madrid announced they would be going into quarantine after a member of their basketball team tested positive for coronavirus. The Spanish club said the football team was also affected because it shares training facilities with the basketball team. La Liga are following in the footsteps of Serie A in taking the drastic action, seen by many as a necessary precaution given the circumstances. There is now mounting pressure on the Premier League to make a stand, with an emergency meeting taking place later on Thursday. And before we wrap up Nightline this time around, let's take a look at what has been installed on the front pages of Malaysia's main newspapers on Friday, March 13th. The New Straits Times and the nation's best-selling Malay newspaper, Harian Metro, both focuses on the worsening global contagion that prompted the World Health Organization to officially declare the COVID-19 outbreak a pandemic. Berita Harian, meanwhile, highlights Federal Territories Mufti Datuk Seri Dr. Zulkifli's speech urging all staff to ensure good governance and integrity at work. And lastly, a report on how the COVID-19 is sending the world closer to recession gets the front page of the Malaysian Reserve. Do get your copies today. And 4 days before the official start of the Formula One season at the Australian Grand Prix, Max Verstappen took on Aston Martin Red Bull Racing teammate Alex Albon in a series of challenges. In one of their first challenge, the Formula One duo battled it out on motorized cooler boxes in Melbourne. Let's take a look as we wrap up Nightline this time around. With that, I'm Nakia Bashiruddin. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.